And by the way, there's a small announcement. If there's a technical issue with regard to logging in, and if you have a little bit of a issue, once we start the recording, you should be able to log in again. That's a small announcement by the administrators. In the meantime, so we'll start with the Incoterms, and after that, I will do 1 or 2 questions from the URC assignment. Then we'll shift to Forex around 2 to 10. Right. So try to concentrate with me. Incoterms or the trade terms. So I said there are 11 Incoterms, and the version that we are discussing is 2020. I may have given the 200 and that is 2010 version for you all as the handout, but don't worry, there's a fraction of a change from 10 to 20, and that change I have already spelled out. So when we do it in detail, I will let you know what the exact difference is. I'm not quite sure what based on which version that the question will be put in, but then again, you have to get prepared for both and then go. Very likely it will be based on 2010 version, but we'll see. So out of the 11 Incoterms, 4 Incoterms, namely FAS, FOB, CFR and CIF, could be used only for sea and inland waterways. The rest of the Incoterms, that is starting from ex-works up to DDP, that is delivery duty paid, that there are 7 Incoterms, could be used for any mode or modes of shipment. So very likely the question will be based on this. There had been instances this particular question has asked on the MCQ level. So these are the 4 Incoterms that could be used only for sea and inland waterways: free alongside ship, free on board, cost and freight, and cost, insurance and freight. So from ex-works, FCA, FAS, FOB, CPT, CIP, like that it goes on, and up to DDP. I have put an arrow here just to indicate that will be supported in your note now as well. That is to indicate the risk or the seller's risk get high from ex-works to when it moves to DDP. In other words, seller has minimal risk in ex-works and the buyer has the highest responsibility. In case of DDP, buyer has least amount of responsibility and the obligation towards the seller, and the seller does all the things, even clearing the import duty also as well. Right. So that also could be a possible question. What is the most advantageous Incoterm on behalf of the buyer or seller? If it is for buyer, it's DDP. And if it is for seller, it's ex-works. Right. In ex-works, seller is supposed to, these are the seller's responsibilities. Seller is supposed to keep the goods in an exportable manner in his warehouse. This is the warehouse. And he should notify the buyer. Notify the buyer. Once he does that, remember these goods has to be in travel packaging or in an exportable manner. So he can't let the goods to be perished and inform the buyer that the goods are ready. He has to make sure that the goods are well protected and kept in a great place along with the buyer. And once he notifies, then seller is supposed to have delivered the goods. Delivered the goods. So delivery means, as per Incoterms, delivery means at which point the seller's risk passes on to buyer. At which point the seller's risk passes on to buyer. Risk. So when I say the seller's risk means seller's goods of risk of the goods, right? Seller's risk passes on to buyer. This point is called the critical point. There are Incoterms that you have two critical points that we'll try to get ourselves to explain. And most of the Incoterms have only one critical point. You need to identify what the critical point is while studying, reading, and listening, right? And in experts, once again, the seller does nothing. Seller doesn't clear for exports even. He doesn't clear for exports even. Buyer is supposed to clear for export. Buyer should clear the export. So export license or the export clearance has to be obtained by the buyer. Export clearance has to be taken by the buyer. Right? In other words, the port of loading charges or any duty has to be paid by the buyer in case they have contracted under X works. But when you come to FCA, there's one responsibility other than the X works to the seller. In FCA, there's hardly a responsibility towards the seller, but he has to clear for export. So exporter, I'll put it the other way, the buyer need not clear the export. When I say clear the export, he needn't obtain the export clearances. Right? This is the case of FCA. This is X-Works. So, seller has to clear for exports, in other words, in case of FCA. Free carrier means he has to clear for export and notify the buyer. Then delivery completes. Right? So, when we say delivery completes, you mustn't take the customary or the usage meaning of delivery, where the physical portion of the goods being delivered to somewhere else physically. Here, delivery means something different, at which point the seller's risk passes on to buyer's account. In FAs, seller has to take some more responsibility than FCA. In FAs, he has to clear for export, fine. And remember one thing, only in X-Works, seller need not clear for export. Out of all 11 Incoterms, this is the only Incoterm seller need not clear for export. We had put it the other way also. X-Works is the only Incoterm warrants the buyer to clear for export. It's the same thing. But in case of FAs, seller has to clear for export and he has to do that little pre-carriage. Take an example, the goods has to be shipped from California to Mumbai. So, under FAs, he can't keep the goods in California. California is a suburb of Colombo. He can't keep the goods in Carania, but he has to do a pre-carriage. He has to take a freight forwarder and take the goods up to the port, up to the port, right? Up to the port. And he has to keep the goods, unload the, he has to keep the goods alongside the ship. Alongside the ship. He didn't keep the goods on board the vessel, but alongside the ship and notifies the buyer. Then delivery completes. So he has to clear for export. Export clearance he has to do. Who has to do? Seller has to do the export clearance. Then he has to do a pre-carriage. Pre-carriage. And he has to keep the goods alongside the ship. Alongside the ship. In which ship that will be nominated by the buyer. Now that is the catch there. He can't, choose a ship at his will. The buyer will nominate what the name of the ship or what the name of the carrier is. So buyer will nominate the ship, and he is supposed to keep alongside of the nominated ship. Right? So alongside ship nominated by the buyer. Nominated by the buyer. Right? That is a phase. Now, in case of FOB, seller has to take some more responsibility, weight on his shoulder if he contracts under FOB. FOB, he can't just, keep the goods alongside the ship. Instead, he has to keep the goods on board the vessel nominated by the buyer. He has to keep the goods on board the vessel or on board the ship nominated by the buyer. Once the goods being landed on board or kept on board the vessel, if it is the board, and if the goods being kept and unclamped the crane, then the risk of these goods passes on to buyer. Cost doesn't get accrued. In none of these, the cost doesn't accrue up to the point of destination. Costs are being in there, so the cost and the risk get transferred at one point. So therefore, these three or these four Ecoterms has one critical point. So FOB, if I illustrate further, I hope that you can see the board. Right. Now this is the vessel. This is the vessel. Right. Now this is the board. So once the goods being kept on board the vessel, the risk passes on to buyer. Goods being kept on board the vessel, the risk passes on to buyer. Now the ship hasn't moved yet. Once the goods being placed on the board the vessel, nominated by the buyer, and if something happens to the goods by high tides or a swaying of the vessel, tilting, or if the goods being damaged, then it's on buyer's account, not on seller's account. Why you keep it the goods? If something happens to the crane and unclamp and goods got dashed on board, and because of that fall, because of the gravitational force, if this container or the parcel or the consignment got damaged, it's on seller's account. Right? So once the goods being placed on board the vessel nominated by the buyer, the risk passes on to buyer. Cost doesn't get accrued, so therefore there's only one critical point, where the critical point is on board the vessel. Here. Critical point. Right? And here you need to remember again, this vessel will be nominated by the buyer. Right. Despite the fact that I have given a summary of the Incoterms, it's always better when you listen, not just try to scribble and take it down for notes. It will be very fine. You can refer to the summary if necessary. But rather than just looking at the listing, just make a scribble on it. So those are the things get remembered at the time that the exam questions are posted on. Right. CFR and CIF. CFR and CIF. In CIF and CFR, the risk passes on to buyer like the FOB when the goods being placed on board the vessel. So this is the vessel, this is the sea, and this is the deck. When the goods being placed on board the vessel, goods being placed already, then the risk passes on to buyer. Risk goes to buyer. But remember, in both Incoterms, you have this letter C, stand for cost. Cost and freight, cost insurance freight. Freight means the cargo. So the cost is incurred by the seller of delivery up to the port of destination. So therefore the cost get accrues until the port of destination. The port of destination. It's true that the risk passes in from here, but the cost get accrues up to this point. Now you see, the cost and the risk get passes on two different places. Therefore, you call both CFR and CIF has two critical points. I'll say again, goods being placed on board the vessel, the risk passes, but the cost get accrues unlike in XWorks, FCE and FAS and FOB. Cost get accrues up to the, not up to the place of destination, up to the port of destination. Not up to the point of destination, but of the port of destination. From where? From the port of loading. So, how the goods came from elsewhere, that is from a landlocked place up to the port of loading, is not being mentioned in Incoterms. Is obviously seller has to bring that along, right? But these Incoterms warrants only from port to port. That is to emphasize with both CFR and CIF could be used only for C. Right. So you understood now. The risk passes in here, cost get passes at the point of destination. Cost get accrues. So when he invoices, he will put the cost of freight also as well in the invoice. It's true that the buyer will pay ultimately, but the seller has to incur initially. That is in case of CFR and CIF. Both are same, but CIF has a difference that you need to remember. In CIF, in addition to the cost of freight obligations, the seller has to bear to cover the insurance. That is why the letter I is there. Cover insurance at least from port to port. Right? He has to cover insurance. Insurance means marine insurance from port to port. So that's the only difference between CFR and CIF. So obviously, if there are a consignment, similar size to consignments, when you contract with the seller, and if the seller quotes on CFR, if the CFR value is $9,900 for that particular consignment, he won't be able to give at $9,900 if you are going to contract under CIF. So it will be at least $10,000. So they will ask the question, Why is the difference between these two when you bring along goods from the same supplier from the same size of the consignment? That is because of the cost of insurance. Cost of insurance. Right. So remember, when I say cost of insurance under CIF, so as and CIP, the seller is obligatory to cover the insurance. He can't have his discretion and cover the insurance. He must cover the contract of insurance. Right. That is in case of CFR and CIF. Right. Before going to the next Incoterms, I will give you another vital information so that you can contract your study of Incoterms so that you will have a better time management with regard to Incoterms. In other words, I have given a huge booklet in case of Incoterms that's running up to 50 pages. So you need not read all the pages to know. So I will contract you. So therefore, you can study those areas. Remember, I told you the seller's obligation towards the buyer be denoted by letter A, A1 to A10, A1 to A10. So, what is A1 denotes and what is A10 denotes, and in between what is A10 denotes, been given your handout in the summary, right? So, go through that carefully. Don't study, just have a glance on that. So you have 10 responsibilities here, that is seller's responsibilities towards the buyer. Likewise, buyer being denoted as B, B1 to B10, there are 10 obligations where the buyer is concerned towards the seller. So every Incoterm has, in other words, 20 obligations you need to study. So 20 into 11, I don't know how much, you have to multiply and see how much it is. And that is a huge, humongous amount. Unless you are a trained practitioner, you need not worry about those things. So I will give you a little bit of, it's not a gimmick actually, I will give some Incoterms so that you can manage the question. You can manage the question, right? We are talking about the 20 marks now. So you should be able to grab for 15 to 16 marks if you try to contract the what you call the study pattern. So I'll give a little bit of a hint in here. Now, you can't have a compromise on that now, right? You didn't read all the A1 to A10 and B1 to B10. But remember, you read A3, all the Incoterms. A3. A3 gives the contract of insurance, contract of ferry. There are two parts for A3. It gives contract of insurance and contract of freight. Right? Contract of freight and contract of insurance. Right? So the correct word is not freight, actually is carriage. Carriage. Right. Freight is cargo. You are carrying the freight. That's called a carriage. The contract of carriage and the contract of insurance be denoted in where? In A3. So you have to read A3 in all the Incoterms. That is not difficult, right? And you need to read A4 also. A4. That is delivery. How are going to delivery? At which point the delivery takes place. When I say delivery, immediately should come into your mind. Delivery means at which point the seller's risk passes on to buyer. So that is why this A4 is important. A4 is important, that is why. But only thing you have to read A4 in all the 11 Incoterms. That's a small paragraph being given. Right. Then, once you deliver, you need to have a proof of delivery. Seller has to give a proof of delivery to buy, obviously, saying that he has delivered, right? That denotes in A8, delivery document. Delivery document. Delivery document. And A6 is not very important, but there were instances based on A6 also and be questioned. This, when you do these obligations and when you try to, fulfill the obligation towards the buyer, he has to incur certain costs. So allocating cost being denoted in A6. Allocated cost for seller on behalf of the buyer. So allocated cost. Allocated cost. Likewise in B6, you get the allocated cost from buyer to seller. So now see, it's very easy. You read A3, you read A4, A8, A6, B6, you are in well shape to get a merit pass on the. For any question, you should be able to answer this. You will definitely get 65% marks. Right? So I am requesting you to read only these three out of that. So I have contracted, but you can't make a compromise on these 4 equators if you really want to get that question right. Right. Debt and DDP. This debt is known as DPU now. I told you this. These are the 2010 version. These are the 2020 version. There's no debt. There's a DPU now. That means delivered at terminal. DPU means delivered, place, unloaded. Unloaded. This D group is called the D group. This D group is called the arrival means of transport. Arrival means of transport. Buyer can see the goods are arriving towards his doorstep. Arrival means of transport. Right? So if you read the A3 of the relevant articles, you will identify that. Right? So that means the seller has to do the pre-carriage if they are selling, have to organize the voyage, then he has to bring around the goods to the importer's country also as well. So why is not doing anything? Why is a higher advantage position? He's a dominant part in case of arrival mean. Seller has to do all the dirty work. He has to do the export clearance also. So he is bringing the goods along. He has passed the sea, now it's land. Now here it's a terminal. That's the terminus point. This dotted customs. To pass the customs line, you have to pay import duty and clear the cargo. So the seller is not doing only that. Seller is not doing only that. So this is the terminal. So he is supposed to keep the goods at a delivered in a terminal, in a point which has been pointed out by the buyer. It could be a place or a terminal. But he has to unload the goods. He has to unload the goods. Now this is very critical. Critically, this is very important word because the examiner will earnestly waiting for you to until you write the word unloaded to give marks. So you can tell everything, but if you don't say that the seller has not unloaded, then you will not get marks. So the main responsibility of the seller in case of DAT or DPU is to deliver the goods, but he has to unload the goods and notify the buyer. Responsible to unload the goods as well. Then the buyer will load the goods to his own carriage and pass the customs line by the paying import duty. So buyer has to pay the import duty there. DAP, same thing like the DAT or DPU. That is why this DPU is easy to understand now. Delivered, placed, unloaded, or delivered, point, unloaded. Right, unloaded. But in the case of delivered at place, that means buyer requests the seller to deliver the goods little farther away from the terminal, not in here, but he has to keep the goods somewhere here, but before the customs line. Before the customs line, right? So the goods will be placed not at the terminal, but in a different place, at a agreed place. But the goods will be kept ready for unloading. Ready for unloading. He doesn't unload, huh? He keeps the goods ready for unloading. So the buyer has to come and unload the goods, take it to carriage, pass the customs barrier, pay the duty and clearing charges, and pay the consignment. Understood? DDP. That's also seller has to do everything under the sun in the contract, and the buyer does nothing. He has to clear the export clearance, arrange the voyage, right? And he has to pass his barriers as well by paying the import duty on behalf of the buyer also. Buyer doesn't do even that. And he has to pass this barrier and he has to keep the goods in a place. Now, if he wants to get the goods to Borlascamo, he has to bring from Colombo port up to Borlascamo. How? By passing the customs. So he has to pay the import duty and deliver the goods up to Borlascamo. If you are getting the goods, I mean. Right? But he has to keep the goods in Borlascamo in a landlocked place and a delivered destined place ready for unloading. Ready for unloading. Ready for unloading. He doesn't unload the goods. So if I sum up a little bit, ex-works is the only Incoterm warrants the buyer to clear for export. Conversely, DDP is the only Incoterm warrants the seller to clear for imports. DAT or DPU, when I say DAT and DPU is the same in the both versions, DAT in 2010 version, DPU is the same Incoterm, but it's given a different acronym in there. So instead of DAT, now being used as DPU, whether it's DAT or DPU, that is the only Incoterm warrants the seller to unload the goods. Unload the goods. Right, now we have finished the Incoterm session. With this knowledge, tackling a question will be slightly difficult. And I will give another what you call another idea of Incoterms, how to study and figure out this thing. But when I give that, I will not explain further. But when I do the assignments, I will take that info and then do it, and you will understand why I have wrote this. I'll list down the Incoterms straight away. You also do with me parallelly, so same time. And we'll see what we are trying to discuss now. Ex-works. Right? When you write an Incoterm, you have to write by inserting the risk point what we are get transferred. Right? So, ex-works means You have to say here name place of delivery. You don't just write X works $10,000. You have to say where the X works is. So when you say X works, you have to say at which point the risk passes on. That's the name place of delivery. So you can say X works Woodlands Cupboard, X works Bambalapiti, X works Jaffna. Like that you can see. Right? Free carry. Free carry. Name of delivery. Name place of delivery. Then FAS. FAS. When you write FAS, you have to insert a name as a suffix. So FAS, you have to insert the name, you have to insert, insert. Insert. When you say FAS, you have to insert the named port of shipment. Name port of shipment. If it is FOB, it's the name port of shipment. Because at the port of shipment only the risk passes on. In this case, of course, it's in the port of shipment all right, but outside the ship. FOB. Then you have the CPT and the CIP, carriage paid to, carriage and insurance paid. Right? Name place of destination for both the name place of destination. Then the CFR and CIF, name port of destination. Named port of destination. Then the debt or DPU. Name place of destination. Right? So these ones needed. Now you have to remember these ones also. Just by hearting Incoterms wouldn't suffice. You need to know these ones also. Why? This is the knowledge that you have to have when you're structuring the answer. Right? So, right. So next week we'll do a small exercise to understand this before coming to the assignments, right? Now take the assignment of the URC 522 that I have gave you. And before that, let me know whether you understood the Incoterms, just in a nutshell, the theoretical part of it. You give me a just a small comment on there. And if you want me to illustrate further, I will keep a note and do it next time. right? So let me know whether you understood the Incoterms. Just make a comment on that. Right. In the meantime, right, Purnima, thank you. So let one or two more people comment so that if you have a little bit of a gray area also, you can comment. I will keep a note of it. And we'll move on to URC. Right. Chaturi Padma Peruma. Okay, thank you. Uh, right. So assignments number 1, that is the bullet 2. So I wanted you to do at homework, but only very few students. There were a couple of students, little more than a couple of students only responded. And one student, of course, have had responded, but said that it's extremely difficult for her to understand because of these article forms that I wanted her. I think I wanted her to contact me, but then she did not. I'm not quite sure whether she's in the forum now. And coming to the question, your bank has received from one of your correspondent abroad a documentary collection to be handled on DP terms, subject to URC 522. The documents were received by your bank on Friday, 10th August. Your bank has processed the collection on the following Monday. At least the collection instructions did not indicate an address to which presentation is to be made. The advice requesting payment was mailed to the address of the drawee as appearing on the bill of exchange. Tuesday, the 23rd. The advice was received by the head office of the drawee on Thursday, 25th, and they forwarded the document to their shipping department, which is at another location. They took delivery of the documents after making payment on Friday, the 26th. Since Saturday, Sunday were on non-working days of the office, the goods were cleared only on Monday, the 29th August. Right? By which time they had to pay demurrage charges. Demurrage means not clearing the goods at a superior time from the port. For the port of call or the port of destination will impose a charge. That is called the demurrage. Had to pay demurrage charges for not clearing the goods on time. The drawee is now claiming from your bank the demurrage charges paid by them, stating that your bank had failed to process the documents for payment immediately on receipt, and also mailing the advice to their head office instead of their shipping department, the address of which was given as the notified party in the bill of lading. Right? So it's a very fair this thing, but then there's a little bit of a complicated storyline in here. So you needn't worry about these due dates and all those things. If you remember immediately what's the area that they are harping on. So I gave a clue to go through the article 4 and see. Right. So before that, the article 6, I gave you the article 6 also as well the other day. Article 6 gives a little bit of a direction towards the banks. Article 6. Based on that only, there's a claim coming from the drawee, who is the customer. So Article 6 I will read out for you. After that I will tell you how to structure the answer. Article 6 says, in the case of documents payable at site, you also have the articles, right? In the case of documents payable at site, the presenting bank must make presentation for payment without delay. Without delay. Now, this without delay is a legal term. Without delay. Without delay. So that means this bank has delayed by detouring the mail from to everywhere. Right. So So Article 6 covers cite and acceptance. So I took the cite part only because the question talks about a DP document. So I'll read out again. In case of a document payable as cite, the presenting bank must make presentation for payment without delay. Right? So that part will take it down. We say, as per Article 6 of URC 522, I'm telling you once again, if you don't remember the article, you need not mention the number of the article, you just say, as per URC 522. Right? You will not get marks cut for not quoting the article properly or misquoting the article. You just say, be on the safe side as per URC 522. But when I'm giving the answers as a suggestion, I always give the article, precise article or the sub-article so that you could go back. As per Article 6 of URC 522, if the documents are presented, payable at site, if the documents are presented payable at site, the proceeding must make arrangements for payment without delay. Without delay. So you get 1 mark for that. Right. Remember, I'm telling you again, when you are writing the answers, you are writing point form, or in bullet form. Right? So next point. Now I will draw your attention to Article 4. Article 4 says, Article 4 has 3 parts, A, B, C. I told you already, you need to remember or study well the article, sub-article 4B. But this question is based on Article 4C. So 4C has 2 parts, C1 and C2. So we'll read out roughly and see what these are. Collection instructions should bear, that is 4C1. Collection instructions should bear the complete address of the drawee or the domicile at which presentation is to be made. If the address is incomplete or incorrect, the collecting bank may, without any liability and responsibility on its part, endeavor to ascertain the proper address. Endeavor to address, but they don't know whether the address is correct or compel them to pick the address from elsewhere from a different source of a document being attached along with the coverage schedule. Coverage schedule itself should give the precise address of the drawee. That's what Article 4C1 says. 4C2 is more pronouncing. It says the collecting bank will not be liable or responsible for any ensuing delay. That is because of leverage he is making a complaint. Right, from 22nd to 29th, the documents are loitering here and there. Right, only the 29th the payment went. So the collecting bank will not be liable or responsible for any ensuing delay as a result of an incomplete, incorrect address being provided. Right, so there's a protection towards the presenting bank, despite the fact that the Article 6 says you have to make arrangements for payment without delay if the documents are forwarded under DP terms. Right. So we write the 4C1 and 4C2 in very precisely and very briefly and see how we are going to structure. So when I'm structuring, it's not that I'm giving the article reading from the book straight away. Right? You need to know how to structure as well. There are little important things that you need to take from the article where I know that the examiner will look into. Right. So take it down. Article C, then Article 4C1. So as per sub-article 4C1, Roman 1, 4C1, of URC 522, the connection instruction should bear the complete address, complete, right? When you say complete, the word correctness is incorporated in the word complete. When you say complete, the question should arise. Address could be complete, but we don't know whether it's correct or not correct. No, that is for some stages. I have seen some people arguing. When you say complete, the word correctness being incorporated. So correction should bear the complete address of the drawing. Next point. If the address is incomplete or incorrect, if the address is incomplete or incorrect, corrective that's a nice verb in there. May. So when you use the word may, that's an ambiguous verb. It's not a definite verb. If it's a definite verb, the drafting group of this book, they would have said must. So collective bank may, right? Collective bank may. Collective bank may endeavor to ascertain the ASCERTAIN, ascertain the proper address. Next point. Now that is a very vital point, to disregard the claim that they are being notched, right? Next point. The collecting bank will not be liable. Collecting bank will not be liable or responsible for any ensuing delay. Ensuing, ENSUING, any ensuing delay because of the incorrect and incomplete address. Because of the incorrect or incomplete address being provided. The final point. Therefore, the question is for your bank. So you are writing the answer. So you say, therefore, our bank will deny the claim from drawing as per the provisions of the articles of URC 522, as per the provisions of the articles 522 as mentioned above. Don't say as they are again, say mentioned above. right? Now, this is a fully fledged question. So, should, not that you should be in fingertips of the article, but if you have a rough idea, because you get this similar questions based on the similar articles over and over again. So sometimes you need to mention about the 4C2. That is not the question, but 4C1. So you get dragged to read the 4C1 and 4C2 as well. So when you come across a question with related to address and incomplete address, what you need to do is you read the question once again, however much the paragraph is big, whether a particular address is denoted in the collection instruction, not in elsewhere in the document. Presenting bank is not responsible to check all the document which is attached in there and see whether it is consistent with each of the document. Inconsistency will not be checked by the presenting bank in case of a collection. Document credit, yes, but in collection, presenting bank's duty is not that. To carry out the instructions given by the collection instruction, which is the most important document I said earlier. Right. I'll do one more question. Page 2, first bullet. Page 2, first bullet. You are the head of import department of your bank. The following issues have been referred to you for your instructions. All documented collection referred to below have been issued subject to 522. State with reasons. State with reasons. Right. State with reasons what action your bank should take on these issues. The documented collection drawn on 90 days DA terms was received by your bank from a bank overseas. Documented collection drawn on 90 days DA terms was received by your bank from a bank overseas. As per the collection instructions, you release the documents of the bill of exchange by the drawees. So you are the presenting bank now, or the collecting bank at the importer side. The bill was dishonored at maturity. In other words, customer has signed the bill of exchange, that he accepts the bill of exchange, and given the accepted bill of exchange to the bank, and taken up the documents and gone and cleared the consignment. When he signed the bill of exchange, he has actually virtually promised the bank to pay, that he will pay at the date of maturity, which we stated on the bill of exchange, that is based on the date of acceptance. But he has not showed up. That's why he says the bill was dishonored at maturity, and the unpaid bill of exchange was returned to the debiting bank after obtaining their consent. Very likely the question, though the question is put in this way, what happens in practical situations when the bill is dishonored, you notify the remitting bank saying that the bill is unpaid. On the due date, customer is supposed to pay. If he's not paid or not showed up, then we send a wire saying bill is unpaid. Where does it be stated? In Article 26C. Article 26C3. Right? 26C, Roman 3. I think I did that very precisely. So on that grounds, the presenting bank has to notify the remitting bank. Then the remitting bank will consult the principal and ask now what to do. If the principal is vile and it wants, there's no mercy by the principal, then he will say, okay, we'll file action against the customer. To file action, you have to have the acceptable bill of exchange. Then they will send another SWIFT saying, are requesting the presenting bank to return the acceptable bill of exchange. That's how it happens normally in practice. So in this case, the question says that they have obtained, the presenting bank has obtained the consent from the remitting bank and send the unpaid bill of exchange or acceptable bill of exchange to their complete discharge, because the presenting bank is not responsible because the drawee did not show up. Right, now what has happened? The remitting bank now claims, after receiving the bill of exchange, Excel bill of exchange, they have claimed that your bank has been negligent in obtaining the acceptance of the draft, and they will hold your bank liable for the bill value. They claim refusing payment, stating that the director who signed the acceptance does not have the authority to accept drafts on behalf of the company. Right? On behalf of the company. Right. Now, I will draw your attention to Article 22. If you have the articles, you just go to the article now. This is just a 4-line article, very easy to understand, but slightly peculiar the way that you do for other practices in the bank for other departments. When you always get a signature from the customer, you always make sure that you verify. That is what we have been taught. If all our bankers in the chat room, the what you call the online classroom, that you will see from the younger days itself, from the internship itself, we learn to verify the signature before paying or before contracting for any document, right? So that's the mindset we do have. But the Article 22 says completely different thing in purpose of URC. It says the presenting bank is responsible for the seeing that the form of the acceptance or bill of exchange appears to be complete and correct. Complete and correct. That means the bill of exchange has been regularly drawn. It has to be a bill of exchange. It should be written on the definition of the bill of exchange ordinance of 1882, right? But it is not responsible for the genuineness of any signature or for the authority of any signatory to sign the acceptance. Right? So now you struck the answer. As per Article 22 of URC 522, when you start like that, I advise you to not to start by putting the article, but it is not necessary. But if you put that way, and if you are very confident, and if you say as per Article 20 of URC 522, the examiner will not bother to read the rest of it because he knows that you are trying to raise a point in there and you have put it that properly. Right? So as per Article 22 of URC 522, President Bank is responsible for seeing that the form of the acceptance, of a bill of exchange, appears to be complete and correct. Appears to be complete and correct. Next point. President Bank is not responsible. President Bank is not responsible What the question says, Revenue Bank now claim refusal to payment stated director who signs the acceptance does not have the authority of right. So President Bank not responsible for the authority of any signatory. The authority of any signatory. Authority of any signatory to sign the acceptance. Right, to sign the final point. our bank, our bank will deny the claim, will deny the claim lodged by the remitting bank for our bank being negligent. For our bank being negligent. For our bank being negligent. That is the part of that particular question. So there's another part B, and there's another part C. So try and answer the B and C on your own, and if you wish, you can send me an email also as well, because the last time also I did not get any much responses from the forum. So if you want, you can send to me the two sub questions, and so next time, before exam, I will give you all another set of questions for URC. You can try on based on past papers. Right. We'll concentrate on the forex now. Basic concepts of forex you have studied. So, but we have yet to finish the question number 1 of the assignment 1. Now, I will be starting from the middle section of the sum, which we have done. But anybody, if you have not understood properly, just make a question, or you can come on unmute us as well. So we did the two questions. I am in the question of John Limited. We did the question 2. That is, calculate the exchange rate for the foreign exchange contract for the export shipments. Describe the base of calculation, determine the amount John Limited will expect to receive for 2 export shipments. We did that. And then I said, then I did the cancellation also as well. What the cancellation? The exporter says that he is unable to do the first export went well, but before the second export be defected, he comes to the bank and says that he is unable to ship the goods for some reason. He has to give valid reasons, all right, for some reason. So therefore, he is requested the bank to cancel the forward exchange contract which had booked for the second export shipment. So then I just wrote the cancellation, and then we visualize if the cancellation has had occurred during the option period, then the spot rates has to be taken into consideration when calculating profit and loss due to cancellation of forward exchange contracts. So that's where we stopped, right? So if you go to the basis of calculation with regard to cancellation, I have said this. So I will just read out again, maybe not the same words, but then just see whether you have taken down that properly. This particular, that is cancellation. This shipment is made, how much a fix that was? That is 10 and 2 is 12. 12. That is 2 months fixed for 1 month option, I think. Yes. This shipment is made, or this shipment been or rather, I would have started in this way. Forward exchange contract for this shipment was made for 2 months fixed and for 1 month option. 2 months fixed and for 1 month option. Fixed period ends on 15 December 2008. Fixed period ends on 15 December 2008. Since the cancellation request been made on 10th January 2009, the cancellation has had occurred during the option period. Option period. Therefore, profit and or loss due to cancellation of forward exchange contract will have to be calculated on the spot trades prevailing date of cancellation, right? So that is the thing that I have written. I think I wrote that. I gave you to take it down. With date of cancellation. So I took the spot trades. So what are the spot trades? USD LKR 113.30, UR to USD 1.395. Right? Now these are cancellation of an export. To understand that, the most simplified way is I will just give you an example from the balance of trade. From the balance of trade, right? That is from our trade account. So in a trade account, I am referring to the trade account in the central bank. So if you take the trade account, you get the export, that all the inflows of money is coming to the country. And if you take the difference between all the monies going out of the country, that is the outflows, you call the imports. And if the export volumes are more than the imports, then you get a surplus. If the imports are more than the export, it's a negative figure, then you get a deficit in the balance of payment. The balance of payment, or you call it balance of trade, right? So you get a deficit. Now, to minimize this deficit, what you can do is you can encourage the exports. If unable to encourage exports, what you can do is you can do a small manipulation. That is, you curtail one or two imports. For example, we say we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 imports. So what we do is the central bank will say, okay, you cancel 4 and 5 imports. Then what will happen to the deficit? It will come down because these imports have reduced. It's always in the negative, but the negative figure gets shrunk a little bit because of the contract of the imports. 4 and 5 been cancelled. So when the deficit is down, that gives an indication for the rest of the world as if that our exports have gone up. So when you cancel the import, the picture shows as if there's a rise in the exports. Same thing in the other side. When you cancel an export, that gives the same feature of an import. Right? So that part will have your mindset very aligned for this. Now here, the customer requests to cancel one export. When he cancels export, what happens? It gives us feature of an import. So that is why I took the highest figure. In the case of export, you always buy with a lesser price. You means the bank. If it's an import, bank will sell at a very higher price. That's why these two be taken. That is just for your understanding level. But now we will see the real theory background of why I'm taking the highest figure. Why I'm selling instead of buying. You remember the initial stages of when I did like this, I did a small scenario. $1 purchase. You all remember this? $1 purchase for 1 month against LKR. You remember this? $1 purchase for 1 month against LKR. You remember this? So what we do? We borrow dollars. If you don't remember, go and refer when you are free at home. In this scenario, we borrowed dollars. For that borrowing, we paid interest. These borrowed dollars, we immediately converted the spot buying rate into LKR and reinvested for 1 month for the bank received the interest. That's what we did. So, this particular contract according to this sum was booked for 2 months fixed and for 1 month option. So put this scenario here. In other words, $1 purchase for not for 1 month now, 2 months fixed, 1 month option means 3 months. 3 months against LKR. So when you borrow dollars, you have to borrow for 3 months. That will convert into rupees and placed or reinvested for 3 months. Now this is here to get mature. Customer comes in this here before maturity, somewhere here, and comes and tells us to cancel. Now you can't reverse this transaction because we are already borrowed. Now we can't give back the dollars from which bank that we borrowed, because that bank will say, I'm not thirsty of dollars to receive again. So the bank has to sell those dollars to somehow to cancel this contract. The only recipient that the bank can force for buying is the buyer, is the exporter. So bank will sell the dollars to the exporter. You understood that? Bank will sell the dollars forcibly to seller. Why? He cancelled the contract. And as a quantitative measure, bank will make sure the highest rate will be applied to them. That is why the spot selling rate was taken. That is one way. I can give you another mathematical approach as well. If you have a little bit of algebraic touch for them, this will be all right, but as a thumb rule, this is a real theoretical way of explaining. You remember the export leg, the cross currency is UR to LKR is equivalent to UR to USD into USD to LKR. Cross currency of UR to LKR is UR to USD into USD to LKR. Right. So this is the lease rate that we are the export leg, obviously. So we contracted for lease rate. So for this to become lease rate, there's a product in these two. So this has to be the lesser rate, and this has to be the lesser rate. This has to be the lesser rate. Now the customer cancels this export. When you cancel the export, you have to give the highest rate. So the L becomes high. When for this to become high, this has to become high, this has to become high. So in that way also, you take the highest rate. Right? So we'll multiply and see what the answer is. Under 13.30 into 1.395, I'm getting 158.0535. So UR to LKI is equivalent to 1.395 into 113.30. Now I got 158.0535. Let me double check. Yes, 158.0535. Right. Remember that when we book the contract, what is the unit, what do you call the cross currency rate? it was 158. You refer the sum. This was the amount that we got it. 150 is for €1. The rupee figure was 158.7886, referring to the second export shipment, the unit price. So that means if the customer did not cancel, customer will get this amount. Customer will just get this amount. If the value of the shipment is €1, he will get this. But because he cancelled, he has to give this back to the bank. Give this to the bank. Right? In other words, he's making a profit. So you say here, profit due to cancellation of the forward exchange contract is equivalent to 158.7886 minus 158.0535 multiplied by the value of the shipment 100,000. Let's see whether I subtracted properly. 150.7, you can consider only these 4 decimals here and subtracted. So 6 minus 5 is 1, 8 minus 3, 8 minus 5 is 3, 7 and 7, because this is 0. And here is the four figures here, 4 decimal points. I multiply by 5 figures, there are 5 zeros, so I added a 0. So 73,510, you can use the calculator as well. So due to cancellation, he has got a profit actually for 73,510. Remember, the customer has derived a profit. Any profit deriving out of forward exchange contracts due to cancellation, that profit will not be passed on to the customer. That's the Central Bank of Sri Lanka's regulation. Otherwise, the customer will book forward today and within hours time he will cancel and book again and cancel. He can become a billionaire within a couple of hours time, depending on the pattern of the volatility of the current situations. So therefore, this even though this profit being shown is not will be a book profit to the customer. It will be it will be an opportunity cost instant for the customer. So if you get a profit, always deduct from the contracted rate the cancellation rate. So if you see a profit, then this footnote has to be mentioned. So the examiner will hunt for that footnote. You say, as per CBSL's regulation, that is Central Bank of Sri Lanka, CBSL regulation, any profit derived out of cancellation of forward exchange contract, any profit derived out of forward exchange contracts will not be passed on to the customer. Will not be passed on to the customer. Now come to the import leg, that is the Roman 1. So what the import leg gives you the second paragraph. It says in order to manufacture the goods for this order, John Limited will have to import a single shipment raw materials to the value of 100,000 again from a supplier in Malaysia. The shipment will be made 2 weeks for the rate of LC, and the goods and the shipping document will arrive in Sri Lanka 2 weeks after the shipment date. Right? Therefore, there's a lag of 4 weeks. Right? We'll straight away write the base of calculation now. So you say caption import shipment. Roman 1. Roman 1. See, John Limited will have to import raw materials. John Limited will have to import raw materials. You should be able to write this base of calculation on your own, right? By looking at the sum itself, right? John Limited will have to import raw materials by opening an LC, for value euro 100,000, for value euro 100,000, full stop. If LC will be open 2 weeks prior to shipment date. This LC will be open 2 weeks prior to shipment date. And it will take further 2 weeks to receive the goods and documents. It will further take 2 weeks to receive goods and documents from the date of shipment. Therefore, contract will have forward exchange contract, right? So therefore, contract will have to be booked for 4 weeks from the date of contract. For 4 weeks from the date of contract, which is for 1 month option only. You remember that? The total lag period is 4 weeks. Divide by 4, 1 remaining 0. This 1 has to give for option, otherwise there's no financial obligation. So 1 month given to option, fixed period becomes 0. So in the what you call in the base of calculation, you didn't say 0 fixed period. You just say for 1 month option only, right? So when you say 1 month option, bank will check the spot trade and 1 month. Check the spot trade and 1 month, right? Right. And remember now you are in the import leg. Right? So before going to that, I will do a small fundamental. I will refresh you a small what you call the fundamental theory with regard to imports. Now, in this case, custom means that the bank is receiving 100,000 euro bill to the bank from the time of opening the LC, 4 weeks after time of opening the LC. So, those of the bill is received by the bank. If the documents are clean, that means if there is no discrepancy in documents, if the documents are compliant, then the customer has to pay. From where the customer is going to pay? From his rupee account. So that means rupee has to get converted into euro. So bank will convert the customer's rupee account and debit the rupee account, and the bank will credit in euro and repatriate monies through a payment order by way of MT 202, that's a SWIFT payment order, to overseas bank. That's what the bank will do. So in other words, rupees have to be converted into, in the exports what happened? Euros have to get converted into LKR because euros are coming into the country. Now, in the imports, monies are going out of the country in dollar form. Right. So, in this case, LKR has to be converted into euro in the import leg. So LKR and euro, you can't convert LKR to euro, that's hardly any market. So therefore, LKR has to convert into USD first and from there to euro. So we'll take at the first leg, LKR to convert into US dollars. So this gives an evidence of USD being sold for LKR. USD is sold for LKR. So that means the portion of the USD in here is a sale. USD LKR is a direct quote. In a direct quote, you always sell high. You take the highest price. Secondly, USD has to be reconverted into UR. In other words, UR has to be sold for dollars. The portion of the dollars is, that means UR has to be sold for dollars means US dollars being purchased for UR. So that means the portion of the USD is a purchase here. UR to USD is an indirect quote. In an indirect quote, you always buy high. You always buy high. Right? So therefore, remember, in the case of export, in the case of an import, you always take the highest figure, whether it's a sale or a purchase. Right. So with that knowledge be refreshed, you should be able to quickly what the spot rate would be in case of USD LKR and the other leg. So USD LKR spot is equivalent to not 111.50 but 111.60. That is why I took the highest figure. Now we have 1 month option only, no fixed period. So you can go to the spot and check the 1 month option also. So 1 month option says 70.80. So you need to consider the 80 cents because I took the right hand side figure here. So if you compare with 70 and 80, since 70 is less than 80, you have to add. So I will say add 1 month of. So it's 80, I took the cents off, divided by 100, so that is 40, 100 will 40. Next thing, UR to USD spot is equivalent to 1.4130. Now you know why I took the highest figure here. Right. Now I have 1 month for 1 month option. So we check the 1 month option and see. If you take the 1 month option, then the swap points are 150 compared with 130. Then you have to subtract. When you subtract, what happens? There's a tendency that you will quote less than the spot rate. Then my objective will be ceased. So therefore, I will not exercise the option period for that link. So this is the rate I'm going to take. So therefore, UR to LKR is equivalent to 1.4130 into 112.40. So we'll multiply and see for 4 decimal points. 1.4130 into 112.40. 158.8212. I have given the answer correct. Right. 158.8212. 158.8212. Right. So underneath you can say therefore, the amount that John Limited will have to pay, the amount that John Limited will have to pay for its import shipment is equivalent to LKR 158.8212 into 100,000. So that will give you LKR 15,882,120. Right. Now you all can try the question number 2, question number 3, and question number 4, and check with the answers, and if you have difficulty, you will revert to me. Right? So I will not do the assignment 1 again unless there is a necessity of this thing. Now I need a comment quickly as possible from you before I go for the second question. Give me a feedback, please, whether you understood especially the cancellation and the import one just now. And because I had to do little fraction by fraction because of the time constraints that I have, and maybe I have only 2 hours for a session, right? That's also for a week. So you need to give me a quick, what do you call, a feedback now, whether you understood up to that point. Yes, come on, so that I could go for the second question. Just say yes or no, that will be good for me. Nihara, thank you. Purnima, that's what I said doing. If there's a cancellation during the fixed period, what we are going to do, that I'm going to discuss now, if time permits. So I didn't see any question in related to assignment 1, getting the, what do you call, the shipment getting cancelled during the fixed period. So therefore you can do it. Why I'm giving these similar questions for you to do is to get the accuracy right with the speed. Now, students, what you need to know is, you need to remember, keep in mind is, you have to do this particular sum, the sum that I did over and over again, at least 2 or 3 times, without writing the base of calculation. You write the history, because your figures, your presentation will be right, and your accuracy mainly will be correct, and you will get the confidence of putting it. There are plenty of students I have come across in my own division. Sometimes they are not very geared to use the calculator. So you have to be very careful when you are inputting into the calculator. Don't invert the figure. So it's not a sin to check twice for the check twice the calculation and you are subtracting. Right? For that you need to have time. You have to have time. Now you ought to do 5 questions within 195 minutes. 3 hours and 15 minutes. That is 195 minutes. So 195 minutes divided by 5 minutes is about 39. So you will have 39 minutes for this particular question, but you are getting 45 minutes to 1 hour to handle this. So how we are going to get these 45 minutes, I will tell you at the next session or so, because you are going to save some time from the multiple question. You can save definitely, right? You can save time from the Incoterm. You didn't have 39 minutes. If you are spending 39 minutes for an Incoterm question, that means you are not very thorough in the question. You are not getting marks in there. So if you pass 20 minutes of tackling the Incoterm question, then might as well stop in there and then shift to another question. You might take a little time for the URC question, I admit, not for the equator, right? So after that, you have two difficult sums, that is not difficult, time-consuming sums, the forex and the revolving facility, which are not touched even, right? For the revolving facility and for the forex, you need to have at least 45 minutes. Even for me, it's very difficult to do a sum, but done sum even within 45 minutes. So you need to practice a lot, and your target has to be to do this sum within 25 minutes to 30 minutes time with the ways of calculation, right? You can't read and think and do it. While reading, you should be able to get the momentum and the picture, and that you have to read it, what you call do it in a double up motion, right? We'll do the first question of forex assignment 2, which I gave you the couple of days ago. Forex assignment 2. I have more assignments. I will give those assignments for you all to practice, right? So that more you practice, you get the confidence and be able to do it accurately. I told you again, examiner will have the final answer only. You will not get marks for the methodology. Right. Now, in this question, there's no import leg. There's only an export leg, right? Export leg. And there are two exports. So I will do the second export, which will do cancellation also as well. But I will speed up a little bit because the time constraint I have only 15 minutes, right? But the Purnima, you have to excuse me if I, what you call, overstep the mark. Then of course I have to do it on the next session. But you can try it, and you give me a feedback. I will try to align you. So we'll do the second export shipment quickly as possible. If I'm too fast, then of course you make sure that you will slow down me a little bit, right? Second export shipment, right? So I will rush the base of calculation, but don't bother to take it down. Remember, same method you apply for the base of calculation, right? Since I read and came the question, I will remember. So I will say this shipment is made during the 14th week for the rate of contract, and it will take further 2 weeks to proceed for the rate of shipment, right? So therefore, contract will be booked for 16 weeks from the date of contract. 16 weeks for the date of contract, for 3 months fixed and for 1 month option. Right, that is fast enough, all right, but then you should be able to figure out and write the base of culture neatly before the earlier one and read out. I'm doing the second export shipment. Right. USD to LKR. What? Under 1350. So we have 3 months fixed. So 3 months fixed, look at the grid, is 140 compared with 155. And if you go for the option PT, that is the 4th month forward, then it's 205 compared with 225. Either case, you are going to add. So therefore, I will add only 3 months forward because I want to get a lesser rate. Objective is to quote the least possible rate because you are in the export leg. Right. So I will say add 3 months forward. It's 140. So that means 114.90. You are to USD. What? You are to USD spot 1.2080. So we have 3 months. 3 months. So I will say this 4 months forward. This 4 months forward. 0044. 1.2030, you should be able to figure out on your own why I took 4 months and why I subtracted. I took the 4 months because higher the figure you subtract, less the figure that you get. Obviously, you have to subtract because the unequal pattern in there. So therefore, the cross currency of UR to LKR is equal to 1.20 into 114.90. Right? I will just pick the figure from here. I presume that is right. You just check it. It says 138.1787. But it doesn't take minutes now. I will just calculate and see whether it's right. 1.2034 into 114.0. 138. 2027066. I think we had done a mistake in there. Figure out. If you have spotted a mistake of one, just point out quickly as possible. I think I had done a mistake here. Second export shipment is 14 peak processor. 2 weeks, that is 16 peak, that is 3 months fixed and 1 month option is right. Then 40 is 113, 50 right. Did you spot any mistake in there? Just please note it. Then I have 3 months, 140, 94, this is right. I spotted. See what the figure I have written there. So from this point onwards, I will not get marks, right? So you need to have a double check. You have to UNT spot, I have put a higher rate there. You have to put a lesser rate, right? 1.2070. Now in this case, the lesson what we learned is because we had a standby answer, I double checked. But when you are doing in the exam, you will not know. So therefore, go through the process once again quickly and see whether the pickup figures and everything are right. It's not a big thing to do. It will take about 3 or 4 minutes. Right. 207 0044 take away. Then balance will be 26, right? Right. Now we'll see whether you are getting the correct figure. $1.2026 into 140.90. Then I'm getting 1.7874. So 4 is less than 5. So that figure is right. So my calculation and the feelings are right. Right. So I need this figure 138.1787. And the contract was booked for 3 months fixed and for 1 month option. So the something I will erase. Right. Now take down the what you call the base of calculation quick as possible. Forward exchange contract for the shipment is made. Repeat. Forward exchange contract for the shipment is made for 3 months fixed and for 1 month option. For 3 months fixed and for 1 month option. Fixed period ends on 5th November 2010. Date of contract is 5th August. 3 months means November. From August, September, October, November. So fixed period ends in November, 5th of November. However, now you should know why I use the word however there. Right? When you use the word however, examiner will know definitely back to the fixed period. Right? Those are small gimmicks, right? So you say, however, cancellation request being made on 12th October 2010. That is before this period, right? 12th October 2010, which is at the last month of the fixed period. Last month of the fixed period, right? That is, just to explain you, 5th August to 5th November, 1 month, 5th November to 5th October, 2 months, 5th October to 5th November, 3 months. So this is the fixed period, 3 months fixed, right? 5th November to 5th December is the option period. Right? Now the cancellation request has been done when 12th October. 12th October. So in this gap, 5th October to 15th November only you find the 12th October coming in. Meaning cancellation requests have been made during the last month of the fixed period. Right. Now we say, therefore, profit and or loss due to cancellation of forward exchange contract will have to be calculated. Will have to be calculated. Will have to be calculated. Calculated on 1 month forward. On 1 month forward rates. Right? Why I told you that? Because during the option period is customer is entitled but not liable. During the fixed period, customer is not only entitled, he is liable. Can you remember initially I told you that he is liable and entitled in case of fixed period if there is a cancellation. So therefore, if he has cancelled during the fixed period, bank will sell not like the spot rate as 1 month forward rate also as well. So he is subjected to more quantitative measure than 1 month forward rate, right? So we'll see that now. USD to LTR spot. Looking at the second grade. 114.10. You know why I'm taking the second grade now? Because it's a cancellation of export. You get a salient feature of an import. I explained in different ways. Right. Now I have 1 month forward now to exercise. When you cancel in the option period, you don't have that 1 month forward option. You have to take the spot rates. But here you have to have the 1 month forward also. So 1 month forward rate being given 50-60. So 60 I will take. So I will say add 1 month forward and say 0.60 to give a figure 114.70. UR to USD spot is equivalent to 1.2095. Again, the highest figure I took it. And is 130 compared with 120. So the way that the unequal pattern is there, you have to subtract. If you take the 1 month forward, when you subtract, what happens? You tend to give a rate below the spot rate also as well. So therefore, you will not exercise the 1 month forward in case in that particular leg. So therefore, you take the spot rate. So therefore, UR to LTR is equal to 1.02095 into 114.70. 1.2095 into 114.70, it's 138 point. Sorry, 138.72965. So that means 97. 97. So I have given the answers right in there. Right. So if not being cancelled, customer will get 138.11787 for €1. But because of his cancellation, he has to give back 7297 back to the bank. That means it's a loss. Now you say loss due to cancellation of forward exchange contract for the second export shipment. Loss due to cancellation of forward exchange contract for the second export shipment is equal to LKR 138.1787 minus 138.7297 multiplied by the value of the shipment. What is the value of the shipment in there? Is 200,000. Right. So we'll see what the 138.1787 minus 138.7297 into 200. So this obviously is a negative figure, but you say loss no, so therefore you can put the plus figure here. LKR 110 200 is a loss. Now you see I will give a little bit of gimmick in here. If we are ought to explain, now we are finished the class now. Now see, if he has cancelled the contract, he has to pay to the bank. Bank will recover 110 200. To recover, he should have money in his account. If he doesn't have money, the bank is exposed. So therefore, this is why when you book forward exchange contract, we have to have substantial amount of security, collateral from the customer as a margin. If in case if he cancels during the process, bank should be able to recover. Usually, bank will take 20% of the contract value as a leeway. Right? So you have to fix a limit, structure a limit before booking forward exchange contract. Any system nowadays, banking system will not accept a forward exchange contract unless there's a limit note being noted. Right. Now I need your feedback. Purnima, just tell me whether you understood the fixed cancellation rate, and the rest of the people also as well. And you have some homework to do. In the first assignment, you do the sums that I did say. Don't touch anything on the Forex assignment 2 for the time being. I will tell you that there are more variances, because this is not all that you need to learn in case of Forex, right? So we have to get prepared and go. Just let me know, Purnima, you already fed. Okay, how about others? So we'll wind up the class today, and next Sunday, we'll do 1 or 2 questions from the URC once again, and Incoterms assignments also as well, and we'll do the special forms of letters of credit, and we'll touch a little bit of revolving structure facilities. So I will skip the UCP for the time being, and I'll tell you the reason why next Sunday. I need your feedback. from the class now before I go, whether you understood the tertiary sums that I did. Right, that is Gihad. All clear, thank you. Okay, but you will have a lot of areas to learn still in regard to tertiary sum. There are some more variances. That is why I told you not to do any further sums in for assignment 2. And at least 1 or 2 people, if you can tell me. If there's a difficult also, let me know so I can make a point so that I will, won't be able to communicate unless you come back to me, or next Sunday I will address that. Okay then. I'll see you on next Sunday.